Morning guys, it's Mark here, Celtic Crossbows. A little bit behind on filming, but I promised you a video on medieval arbalist bolts, and that's what we're gonna have. So a quick look on the table now to see how things are progressing, and my latest bolts, so they're coming along ready for filming with my new goat's foot crossbow. Okay then, this isn't a finished video, this is some of the things I'm doing as I'm going along. So as you can see here, we've got different sizes of bolts, 1/2 inch, just under over 1/4 inch, 8mm, 12.7mm. And my shafts, as you know, I make them from hazel, walnut, whatever I can get hold of really. Fitting the heads, people ask how you do when you're fitting the heads. It's simple. All you do, take your knife, don't cut yourself, and you just shave it to a point. You see all the filings on you, and when you've got the size you want, you try it and you fit it, and you quite literally hammer it on, and when your fit is right, glue it in place. That's it. There's no secret to fitting your points. Same as when fitting your fletchings, you see here, the flights are recessed into the wood. Now you can do this many ways. You can use using a modern day router, a Dremel, anything you want. I quite literally mark a line with a marker, big marker, just take a straight edge and draw a line. Then using my knife, I just score it with the back of the blade. Once I got my centre line, then I cut in at a V at 45 degrees either side. And then my knock at the back, just take it and cut off what I need. And it's that simple, as that straightforward is how I make my bolts. Then my parchment, okay, camera went off. Then my parchment, I cut my flights, so I need it. I'm using 1.5mm parchment. And once I know it's sitting in the groove nice, I just run my araldite in the groove, sit her in, locking is not this one's not sitting quite nice yet as I want it, so a little bit more work to do on it. Once that side is done, I'll flip over and do that side. And as you can see, this side is fitting very nicely. If you want to, then you can either use leather flights or plyboard. It's a little bit thick. This is around about 2.5mm, but she may just go. But there's a lot more work involved cutting out your plywood as is for parchment flights. And these flights here, once they're done, just paint them with a bit of varnish to give them a bit of strength, and they work perfectly fine. Okay then guys, so we got our arrow, we got our 2-part primer, your mixing stick, right away. Now anybody used araldite before, it's easy to do. Pea-sized blob, bump. Don't put loads of it down for the simple reason this is rapid set araldite. In 5 minutes it's set. And the first thing you should do before you start is take the top off. Okay, got the top off. Match your size for size, so you've got one size, you match the other size, this side the same, or blob the same. Just mix it up. That's more than enough. Now all you do is now, once you've got the glue off your fingers, because you don't want it going everywhere, just feed it into this groove down here. That's all you've got to do. Sounds easy, but it's actually a little bit tricky. You think I'm using a lot of glue, but like anything else, the wood itself will absorb most of it. So you get more on a spatula there, work it down into that slot. All the way up. So you know that pea of glue which I mixed and made, that's pretty much gone. Now the excess now, before we put the parchment in, I should have a bit of paper ready. Here we are. We're going to wipe off the surplus. Here we are. Now, I'm going to take our first flight. Move that cardboard out of the way. And set it into that joint. Making sure she's perpendicular to our notch. Then we just got to take it, set it into our jig so she's upright. Now just double check that down the shaft. You press it down in. Okay. I like that where she is. So we'll make sure she's upright there. And it doesn't matter. I'm coming around now to the other side. So I'm looking down the length of the shaft now. To make sure she's perpendicular. We don't want her off side or the other. Cat's going berg in a window. Right, we're upset. We're in line there. And now it's going to leave that to set a half hour. In fact, I'm going to cock it off to the right. As the weight of the flight doesn't go over. There we are. Okay, so we're going to let that set now. We're going to come back to see how it takes. Okay, just put our fletching clamp in place now to make sure she doesn't move while she's setting. There we go. We're going to come back and check this every few minutes to make sure she's setting true before she goes rock hard. Okay, one of the questions people ask me is, why are handmade bolts so expensive? Typically £15 to £25 per bolt. Well, I can show you, it's really easy. Each of these shafts depends, just the shaft, on what you want the material made from, whether it be yew, oak, ash. The costs vary. You don't buy them in little short shafts like this. You buy them in 2 or 3 meters at a time. They have you then measured and cut to size. Do you want a natural finish? Do you want a bare wood? Do you want the wood treated to stop it from rotting? Everything like this comes into account. Do you want a mass-produced steel bodkin tip? Do you want a cast iron tip? Do you want a hand forged tip? Do you want parchment flakes? Do you want leather? Do you want wood? When it's set, do you want the feathers? Do you want them bound? So it can take at least an hour, sometimes just for one bolt. Now if you take into account the average wage in the UK today is £15 to £20 an hour, that's £20 per bolt in labour. You add in that material and costs, average tip these days is around about £3.50 to £5 a tip. Your flights, you're soon up to around about £25 per bolt. So that's if you want anything done by hand in traditional materials. This is what I've done using carbon fibre, where the shafts, again, still have to be cut by hand. The flights still have to be glued on, as opposed to one of my R9 bolts, which I did mass production from China. And these are around £25, I think, for a set of 5 over on my eBay. So it depends on what you want, whether you want mass produce, and when China stops doing it, because the only ones doing mass production on both Taiwan and China at the moment. I don't see many coming to the UK from Korea. So once the mass production stops, everywhere we're going over traditional handmade bolts. So this is a skill really worth you learning. You will save yourself an absolute fortune. Okay, for you now watching, here's 2 bolts I've done before. This bolt now, she's coming in, she's coming together nice. See, I've got a knock in the back, and the flights are perpendicular to the uprights of the knock. And here we go, it's right to before. Now we come together quite nice. The grain is running perpendicular on this. You always want the grain to run the opposite way to where your string is gonna hit. So flights are in set now. And final tidy will be done once the flights are perfectly set. Okay, one of the things I'm going to do different with these bolts I'm doing now, with this style here, where the paper, parchment paper is glued into the shaft, when you find anything, a boss or anything, you can hit your nose. This is a really good finish on this one. As it comes up the shaft, it'll just right up the shaft, and the shaps, I don't think so, the fletchings will collapse. Modern crossbow bolts, because they got this little ridge just on the front by here. As you penetrate the target, it rips the flights off because they're not set into the shaft. Something which the old Fletchers used to do. Now what I'm going to do with this one, you can see I got a step. I left the step deliberately. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the flight head down in on a shallow curve to here. So you'll have half a centimetre of parchment set in the shaft, and then I'm going to bind it over with fletching string to give it more bite down in the body, so when the bolt penetrates, it'll catch on the step by here, and the string will give it extra security on the front of the fletchings. Right then guys, the first of our broad edge is done. This is a munitions grade, meaning it's rough and ready. This is what the army was issued with. It wouldn't have been a match quality bolt, it would have been a bolt to do the job. Now we put extra work into this which wouldn't have been done with a standard military grade or munitions grade. The flights would have been inset into the shaft. They would have had no extra binding. If you notice, they've still got the bark on the shaft as well. These was cheap. These was your cheap bolts or quarrels, which today would be your plastic quarrels, throwaway. This was the business end. This was forged steel, and that's what all the government was interested in, was the armour piercing. The back end was just the delivery system. So as we look at the shaft, you can see how it comes. We try to get it on camera better for you. So you can see how the head is coming in quite rough and ready. Another one as well. This is how they come in. The shaft's just cut after the Fletcher has steam treated the shafts, whether it be yew, ash, poplar. Same here, so you can see we got our shafts now, our broadheads coming into the shaft, and the flights set into the same. Now I took the extra time to put some binding around the front of the fletchings, because unlike the military, we won't be throwing away, we'll be reusing them, so putting the extra binding around the shaft protects the edge of the flights. What happens with these ones is they come into the target and be ripped out. Being set into the wood makes it a little bit better, but other than that, it's a throwaway device. So as we look on this one then, we can see where the shafts are glued in and brought round, and this one now is ready to rock and roll. Variation of what I'm doing now is in setting with leather, which is the same thing now. For some of the poachers and things like that, what they would have done is they would use some thread and actually bound the leather flights onto the shaft. If it was a poacher, you had lots of leather hanging around from tanning, things like that, sold, selling off your boar to your friends, etc., making extra money off the king's land. So you had the extra leather. You used what materials they had. If you was a poultry farmer, you would have more chickens around, so you probably use more turkey feathers and fletchings for your flights. Same again, if you was more of a lumberjack, you'd have access to wood. You'd use whatever material you had to make your fletchings at the time. So what we'll be doing next, I'll be finishing the leather bolts, the flights. I might do one or two for the half-inch crossbow. Crossbow. I'll get my words out in a minute. And then, as soon as the rain breaks, yes, we've now had 9 weeks of continuous rain, we'll be up the field and testing them. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this. Thanks and bye bye.